My name's David Caldwell, and with almost 2 decades of experience in the Portland metro area real estate market and a passion for data-driven insights, I'm here to bring you the latest trends, advice, and stories from the world of real estate. Whether you're buying, selling, or just love staying informed about the market, this podcast is your one-stop source for expert insights and personal perspectives. So let's dive in and ask the all-important question: how's the Portland real estate market?
What's up, everybody? My name is David Caldwell. I'm here with Krista Britton. We are principal real estate brokers at Real Broker. We're going to talk about the Portland housing market. We're going to break down some numbers. We're going to look at just what is happening in the housing market today. If you're thinking about buying or selling, what we think you need to know this month based on last month's numbers. So let's get into it.
So do this thing.
So I think, the first thing we always look at is what's happening with the average sales price. Because I believe when people ask how the housing market is, that's what they're asking. How is my equity? If we compare 2024 to 2023 through July, the average sales price has increased 1.9% from $599,300 to $610,700. The median sales price increased 2.3%. from $532,500 to $545,000. If we look over the last 12 months, if we review, we look at the last 12 months, the average sales price has increased 1.4% from $596,100 to $604,500. So what has been happening? Well, in the beginning of 2024, the Portland housing market has regained the value that it lost in 2023. Because we know in 2023, we lost about 2% of the sales price. We have now gained that back, which is good news for sellers. I actually believe it's good news for buyers as well, because buying an asset that's going up in value or predominantly goes up in value is important. What's another thing we know? In the last 25 of 30 years, we've had positive growth in the average sales price in the Portland housing market. 4 years during the Great Recession where home values declined. 2023 was that 5th year where home values declined. So 5 years in the last 30 years where you've had declines, 25 years in the last 30 years where you've had increases. The question will be, will this trend continue between now and the end of the year? Or based on what we normally see at the end of the year with price reductions, will that average sales price level out? Will it decline? We do have positive momentum. Things are going in the right direction. So that's what I look forward to seeing.
And I mean, this is also the hot topic, right, of this week when predicting what's going to happen is the interest rates just dropped. Right. So, but we've been discussing this. And I mean, David, you had some interesting takeaways. How do you feel about the drop in interest rates? Do you think that's enough to make any changes? I mean, we also discussed, hey, we see a lot more people looking to refi, but then at the same time, that doesn't mean they're moving. That just means they're refiing. So it doesn't mean we'll have more supply. So what are your thoughts on the interest rates with regards to what we're looking at?
Yeah, so when interest rates go from 7% is what we've basically been averaging to 6.5%, there was one day where it was like 6.34%. We make fun of our peers, unfortunately, on here a lot. And when mortgage brokers, everyone's really excited because it's change in the right direction. And we should be excited about that. But it came on the back of a bad jobs report, so it's like, I don't love to celebrate an unhealthy job market where people in our community might have some job insecurity. But if we just look at, the financial numbers, a $600,000 average sales price with 20% down, a $480,000 mortgage, you were roughly going to save around $200 a month.
Yeah.
It was going to be about 3 weeks of savings on one of your mortgage payments, from 7 to 6.5. So $2,400 a year-ish, that I'm gaining back, as a family or a single person buying the average sales price home. I don't believe that's enough to bring hundreds of buyers back to the market.
Yeah.
I think it's great if you're in the marketplace today. I think it might be a signal that things are starting to trend in the right direction. And if you want to buy a home in the type of economy and marketplace we're in right now, which doesn't have a lot of multiple offer situations, depending on the price point, where there are more price reductions or price reductions are prevalent, this is still a good market to be in. But to answer your question, do I think this really changes the direction of the market? I don't think it does. I think it's a nice bit of optimism, but we still have people, at the average sales price having a payment roughly of $3,400 a month, depending on taxes. And I believe that's still too high to have a housing market that, 30,000 people can participate in, which is historically what we've seen.
Well, and to piggyback on what you're saying about having a negative jobs report, things like that, just a reminder for everyone, and this is something that, not everyone understands, is when we see negative things happen in the economy, things like that, that's when we start to see interest rates go down. So everyone's hoping for these interest rates to go down, which we want them to, but generally for them to get so low, something major has to be going on in the world and the economy. Step in COVID. The rates were the lowest we've ever seen, and we were having a national or a worldwide pandemic, right? So that's something to think about when you're wishing for interest rates, things like that. We want low interest rates, but I don't think we want everyone out of a job. We don't want to go into a shutdown, things like that. So it is a double-edged sword.
Yeah. And generally what's bad for the stock market is good for mortgage rates. Mm-hmm. But when it's bad for the stock market, usually it's bad for people getting close to retirement. It's bad for people's 401ks, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. So, last Monday when we had really great rates, we had this big sell-off in the market. But then in the stock market, people were reinvested and rebuying. This week so far has been the trend. So that's also something to think about if you are someone who's looking at buying right now when you get into contract, when you lock your rate. I had a client that I recommended he lock his rate on Monday. His lender told him not to. I hope that his lender pays him back somehow because he needs to lock. I think he probably locked this week at a higher interest rate than he could have on Monday, unfortunately. Monday was a great day to lock in rates. So anyway, let's look at new listings.
All right.
If you're a seller, you're thinking about putting your home on the market, let's talk about supply, because real estate, if we're talking about home prices going up, what we just talked about was a condition that's affecting demand, right? Mm-hmm. People can't afford mortgages. They can't afford to buy your home. What do we have last month during the month of July? We had 2,905 new listings come to the market. Year to date in the Portland metro area, we've had 19,300 listings come to the market. How does that compare to normal year in the last decade? It's a shortage, right? It is a historically low number of listings. It is marginally higher than what we had last year. So it's the second lowest year in the past 5 years. But really what we want to look at is what is the gap between listings coming to the market and the number of people buying? So if we also look last month, we had 5,904 total options to look at. If you had no parameters in your price point, if you had no parameters in your location, you could have looked at a lot of homes every single day. Probably wasn't even enough time to look at all of them. But if we just go from this 5,904 available listings at any point in time, and we go real quick to what happened last month with pending sales, there were 2,191. So almost 6,000 listings, almost 2,200 sales. So that's about 60% of the inventory, or 2 out of every 3 homes listed for sale last month did not receive an offer. If you are a home seller on the market right now and you're scratching your head why your home isn't selling, Could be a lot of things. Could be price, could be condition.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the lack of buyers in the marketplace. If you've been watching these, we talk about like what is a robust housing market. And in my opinion, it's a housing market that many people can participate in. Because of the combination of average sales price and mortgage interest rates, we do have unaffordability. So we have less participation by buyers in the marketplace today. You know, everyone wants their home to sell fast, 30 days or less. At day 35, as your listing agent, you usually hate me, right? Because you thought your house would be sold. Well, last month there were 2,905 of those people. Well, let's pretend they all listed on the first day of the month. Well, over that next month, 2,191 went pending. 30% of the homes roughly did not accept an offer. Those got added to the other inventory on the market. Oh, the homes that are selling, the homes that sold last month had average days on market of 44 days. So people are hating me 9 days prematurely, right? Because they're mad at day 35, but I should have till day 44. No, in all reality, this is really important. If you are thinking about selling a home or if you're a buyer negotiating an offer, how many buyers are participating in the marketplace in which you're trying to purchase a home? What is the available inventory for homes like the one you're looking at? I had some clients who are making an offer on a property today. It's a really beautiful home. It's been really nicely remodeled. It's in a little bit higher of a price point. And when I went to look at comping it out today, you know, we can find good comps and we can find bad comps. But one thing we found is that a home in this condition, in this area, at this size, at this price, is exceedingly rare. And our opportunity to replace that house and wait for new inventory, if we lose it based on how we want to negotiate, we could be waiting a long time. So what's the value of negotiating $5, $10, $15, $20, $30,000? What is a safer strategy in still procuring a discount while making sure we procure the home? These are things that people need to look at based on the amount of homes coming to the market and the amount that are going pending. I just talked a lot, which I have a tendency to do. So what do you think, Krista?
No, I think those are really important. Like taking all those factors, right? That, you know, when buying, selling real estate, there's not just everyone, you know, some clients get hung off on price per square foot, right? And that's all they can focus on. There's bigger piece to the pie. There's exactly what you said. How many offers are in? How many people are interested? How many days on market? What are the updates? Again, we talked about this earlier with that house that you brought up. I get very excited for my buyers when you find a home that maybe someone has put a lot of money into and is not generally get that back. Now the buyers are like, well, what's that benefit, right? These are very expensive updates for a home that you're going to get to reap the benefits of that you didn't have to put in, and you might get to pay less for the home also. So what does that win-win look like, right? So there's all these things to take into consideration. So I think that's important as a buyer. It's nice that you can take a little bit more time with these homes that are on the market, depending on the home. We do still have the unicorn homes that have multiple offers, things like that. But they can sit down. They have time to look at the comparables. They have time to price things out. They have time to think. And sellers need to be a little bit more patient, right? And for sellers that homes have been sitting a really long time, you've got to be honest with yourself. Is it overpriced, right? What is the condition of my home? What is realistic? One of the important things I think, and David, I know you're good at doing this, is when you go to your sellers and you're like, did you know that with the average, interest rate, if someone put 20% down, this is what their monthly payment's going to look like. Would you pay that per month to live in your home, right? And that's another piece, and I don't think sellers think that way.
And sometimes a big question is, how many people do you know spending this kind of money on a mortgage payment?
Yeah.
The most common mortgage payment in the market today is probably $3,500, which let's be real, like prior to COVID, even with those low rates, was a fairly uncommon mortgage payment. But when you start looking at a $800,000, $900,000, $1 million property at 25% down, now you have people's payments in the $5,000 and $6,000 range, which again was a rare payment historically for our marketplace, especially when we haven't seen, really incomes explode. So yeah, I'm with you, Krista. And I would add one thing. What if you're on the market and you're priced right and you're still not getting showings and selling? You really have to evaluate how many people are buying in that price point. I have a property listed for sale right now for $1.4 million. And in the last 30 days, we looked last month in the whole Portland metro area, 19 people bought a house between $1.3 and $1.4 million.
Yeah.
Now, is this property worth that price? Absolutely. And would my clients sell the property for less? I don't know. Is it worth it? I believe so, based on the comps, based on what's happening in that area, right? But, I could put a billboard on I-5 with a whole bunch of $1.4 million houses on it, and it's not going to make the amount of sales go from 19 to 100. We're dealing with a finite amount of buyers. So I guess what I'm saying is it's okay to have higher days on market, depending on what your price point is, but you should know what the benchmark is for your area. Let's move to closed listings. Last month, there were 2,075 closed sales. Year to date, we've seen 12,525. So, doing some quick math, that's not even 2,000 sales a month. But what have we been seeing the last several months? We've been seeing 3,000 listings come to the market. The wider that gap is, the more leverage a buyer has. The narrower that gap becomes is where momentum really moves to the seller's side. We need to redefine what a seller's market is and what a buyer's market is. Because technically, based on months of inventory, the pace of sales, we are firmly in a seller's market. Yet a seller's market where buyers have a lot of negotiation power.
Yeah. Got that gray area.
Because of that gap. So let's give some quick advice to buyers and sellers, and then let's talk real quick about some changes that are happening in the real estate industry for buyers. So what advice would you give to a seller right now, Krista?
Okay, the very first weekend that you put your home on the market is probably one of the most important, right? So you need to come out priced smartly from the beginning, right? Because we can have all the great photos and all the great things, but buyers do not like to look or make offers on houses that they think are overpriced, right? Like I've shown a lot of great houses and I'm like, just throw out an offer. And the buyer's kind of like, I don't know. But if a home seems priced well, the offers generally will come depending on the situation. So for a seller, having it shine and pricing, working with your realtor, going over the comparables, all of the things, getting that price locked in. When you come in overpriced, you're going to be chasing the market down. And every time you lower the price, then someone's going to want to come in lower, right? So
But Krista, I don't have to sell.
You don't have to sell? Well, why do you want to sell, right? Or do you just want to wait a year and possibly, and then you're stuck in a year without being in the house that you want to be in, right? Nobody wants. You have a good comeback for that one.
Well, it's not a comeback. Look, selling a home is a pain in the ass. Selling the house is a pain in the ass. Anyone who puts their house on the market, they want to sell it because that for sale sign in the front yard is an uncertainty of where I'm going to be. But the seller doesn't have to sell, and yet buyers don't have to buy. Mm-hmm. And buyers need sellers in order to move on and extract their equity. And what do we know we have today in the housing market? We have a shortage of buyers. So, pricing intelligently, to your point, is really important. Pricing, I just sold a property in Sherwood, and 2 months ago, I emailed the seller and I said, I can't promise you or give you comps that say you're going to sell in a short period of time, whether you're priced at $750 or 775. I don't think it matters. And I know he had talked to other agents, and we talked for weeks and weeks about what we were going to come out the price at. And I felt kind of bad basically being like, I don't think it matters. I think you're going to get showings at 750 and 775. I think you're going to get showings. Now, you might have more demand at 750, but I can't promise you that. And he chose 769. And by the way, after 30 days, we had not really had the demand that we had wanted. We'd had an offer that we felt was low. We said no to. And then we had an offer come in at 750. And it was time to have a conversation about a price reduction. And we talked about, hey, we'll go at 769 if it doesn't work, based on feedback from the market, based on what else has happened in the area. 750 probably is going to be the number, but we'll look and see where we go. And where did we go? We accepted an offer at 750. Buyers happy, sellers happy, second most expensive sale for a one-level house in Woodhaven year to date. It's a great sale given the condition of the property. It's a really special property. I know you saw it. But I didn't know. But we priced as intelligently as we could, right? We knew we were going to get showings at either one of those prices.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because once again, this is a common thing that sellers complain to me, like, why don't people just make an offer, right? Why don't people just make an offer? People don't. Not everyone is adept at coming in and making that low offer. People get hesitant. They don't want to be offensive. Whatever it is, it's a huge mind block for most people. Not everyone. You do have those people that are, that sometimes want to come in too low, right? But if you put it within that gap, right, that's when I think you're going to have the best success, right? So pricing correctly, as close as you can, right? Sometimes the market, you need to put it on the market, and that will kind of help you determine, because there are those special properties, right?
Yeah. So let's talk real quick about advice for buyers, and then we'll talk about these changes.
Okay. Buyers, right? Make sure you're checking with your mortgage broker. Check on rates. You need to be prepared. Before you go in, you're always going to find the house when you least expect it. And if you're not prepared, you're going to miss it. That's the worst thing, right? Not being prepared with the loan and all those wonderful things that you need to do that are not the fun parts of, I would say, home shopping. All right? Get your finances in order. The next one is know that you do have options. Like if you go in and you're looking at a property, if it was just put on the market that day, they might not be as negotiable, right? It's been sitting for longer and there's no other offers. Yeah, you're probably gonna be able to get some stuff, right? You might be able to get closing costs. You might be able to get more repairs. You might be able to get the price down. It's really important to look and see which of those figures makes the most sense. Some people are really, really hyper focused on price, but sometimes maybe having closing costs is more beneficial because then you have the money in your pocket, right? Every situation is different. So those are just some things to think about. But just know you do generally, depending on the house, how long it's been on the market, you do have some wiggle room. What do you think, David?
Well, I was going to move on to the next subject.
Oh, next subject? All right.
Look, I'll just confirm and say you do have options, and that's a buyer's best friend. And not every house is a good house, and not every neighborhood is a good neighborhood, and not every deferred maintenance repair you should accept. Mm-hmm. So again, I feel like I talk a lot about making smart decisions. And what's smart decisions? To me, it's backed up by data, right? It's not always buying the outlier. There are good houses and there's great houses. There's good neighborhoods and there's great neighborhoods. There's, sufficient siding and there's good siding. There's good furnaces. And then there's ones that are about to die that even if you get a home warranty, you might not want to wait a month during the winter for that furnace to come back to life. So, making sure that you are a savvy buyer, being an educated buyer, I think is really important. So, if you're someone who's watching this, you are probably aware of the changes going on in the real estate industry in terms of buyer's representation and seller's representation. Chris and I have both been doing this for more than 15 years. And for 15 years of our career, if you called one of us to see a house, we just say, sure, what time? And maybe at most, we'd say, sure, what time and do you have a pre-approval letter? Because the seller will only show this property to pre-approved buyers. By the way, when we'd asked for a pre-approval letter previously, people got really mad at us, right? Like most people did not want to show
So offended.
proof of funds or that they were able to qualify just to look at a house. We won't get into the semantics of the rules, but based on Oregon law, based on changes to the way participants in the MLS work, if we now receive that phone call, we will be required, in order to show you a property, to have you sign an agreement that's either a non-exclusive agreement or an exclusive agreement to work with us. Now, I'm under no delusion that someone I've never met that doesn't know who I am is going to sign an exclusive agreement that they're going to buy a house from me sometime in the next 0 to 6 months and pay me X amount of dollars to do so if I cannot negotiate that on their behalf. So probably what's going to happen, and no one really knows, but we're probably going to date each other and see if we like working with each other with a non-exclusive agreement. And after a couple dates, probably sit down and talk about this exclusive agreement. What's the exclusive agreement look like? No different than what it's like when we work with any buyer right now. We're agreeing to respect each other's time, be fair to each other, be open with each other, be honest about what the buyer's trying to achieve and how we're going to help them achieve that purchase. Historically, a listing agent's firm has paid the buyer's broker to come in for representation. That's how things have been done in this country for a long time. And we weren't able to talk about commissions of buyer's compensation. Some really bad agents were getting compensated really fair, and some really good agents weren't getting compensated very fair, right? Like that's something that could happen. But let's remember that no one goes to work and works for free. Nobody. These agreements outline how is the buyer's representative going to get paid. And it isn't finite. It is a negotiation, both by percentage and who's going to pay. There will be situations where a seller might compensate the buyer's agent's representative fully, potentially partially. Right now there's this big debate in who pays the commission, right? Well, surely it just comes out of the average sales price, which would technically be part of the seller's proceeds. But essentially in every comp in the MLS today and for the last 10 years, at least 99.9%, you can say technically the seller paid it, or technically it was part of market value. The question's always been, who gets the discount if we're negotiating compensation down? So we don't even get into the semantics of that. But if you are a buyer looking to purchase a home, what you have to know now is it's not as easy as just saying, I want to go see something. There will be an agreement that has to be signed, either an exclusive or a non-exclusive agreement. Let me tell you, I'm sure dating is not fun, right? But if you're a buyer, Hillshire Realty Group, we're happy to date you, right? We're happy to see if we're a good match, if we could go out and we can fit your needs in this non-exclusive agreement. We would just ask that after we show you our style of representation, that you'd at least be courteous enough to sit down with us and talk through some different scenarios and how we can help you achieve your buying goals.
That was very well explained. That was very well explained.
Okay. You like my in and out burgers?
Weird. We're going to get out there and start dating again.
Yeah. So, hey, if you guys have any questions, you're thinking about buying and selling real estate tomorrow or 10 years from now, doesn't matter to us. Krista and I, this is the only skill set we have, although she's trying to learn jujitsu, which is rad. You can email us at hello@hillshirerealtygroup.com, and we'll see you next time.